All right, everybody, so we're back on the workbench, and what we're going to do now is we're going to start a little quick little kit that I picked up from Fos Scale Models, is from his Fos Foundations line, and this is basically like an entry-level Craftsman Kit. But I'm going to be taking this kit on vacation with me, so I'm going to build it remotely. So what I'm going to have to do is certain things I have to be prepped, because unfortunately I can't use a blade, so I have to do all my cutting here. All my spray painting will be here, but assembly and wall painting and everything else will be done on vacation. So let's open up the kit and then we'll see what's inside. All right, so this is a basic kit that Fos Scale Models offers, and it's more or less 4 walls, 4 pieces of strip wood, and your windows. But I built these before, and they're really nice, and you can't beat the price on them. So let's take a look at what's inside. So we have our instructions, we have our acetate for the windows, we have our roofing paper here. Okay, so here are the instructions. Pretty simple model to build. We have our bracing, which I'm going to add more. I like to always add additional. And then we have our corner trim here. All right, so let's take a look at what's inside the package. So we have the signs, which I'm not going to use these signs. I'm going to rename the company. Okay, so we have our side walls, regular walls, and we also have our trim. In addition to that, we have our roofing card as well. All right, so let's get started. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm preparing to prime the windows. And the way I do it is I take some masking tape and a piece of cardboard, and I basically put 3 or 4 pieces of masking tape down, and I cut the actual windows out and stick them to the back of the tape. And the reason why I do this is it's just personal preference. You can actually prime the windows and the sprues, but I like to do it this way. So it's good to invest in a nice pair of cutters when you're cutting your windows out of your sprues. And I picked these cutters up, and I've had these for like 10 years, and they work very well. So I highly encourage you to pick up a set yourself. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is, if you take a look at the actual window, see if I can focus in on that. You're going to have a little plastic, like a little plastic nub there. I don't know if you can see it on video. And that's from when it's taken out of the sprue. So, and here's the sprue. So basically what I'm going to do is smooth out those edges, and what I use to smooth them out is just a simple nail file. So let's get started on that. And all you need basically is just three passes to take those plastic high points down. So I'll just do one on tape for you, or on video rather. And that's it. That's how much it takes to clean these plastic parts up. So let's do the rest. So I'm going to be using the gray Napa Automotive Primer to actually prime all my trim and windows. All right, so if you're going to be painting the trim parts with aerosol paints, I would recommend that you do it in a well-ventilated area or even outside like I am here. And how I paint them is, since this paint is so thin, you have to go over it with multiple coats, but you do not have to put heavy coats on. I like to use light coats. I like to spray these parts at all angles to make sure that not only the sides get painted, but the insides get painted as well. There's a lot of little areas on these parts that need to be covered up with primer. And you don't have to put, like I said before, you don't have to put the primer on heavy. You just have to make sure that it's covered so you get a nice bite for the paint to stick to. So I highly recommend using this type of primer. The thinner primer, the better. All right, so I had to put a couple coats on it for coverage, because this primer here, it's great primer, but the only thing with it is it comes out nice and thin, which is not a bad thing. So you definitely have to put a few coats on, 2 to 3 at the most. So all this is all set. So I'm going to let these dry, and then now what we're going to do is we're going to brace the wood. We're going to brace the wood walls, and once I'm done with that, then we'll stain them and weather them up just a little bit, or distress the wood. So let's get started. So you're going to want to use your number 11 blade on this, and basically what we're going to be doing here is cutting the actual walls out of the, I'll call this a sprue, and they're held in by just a little spot of wood where the laser didn't cut it. So all you have to do is apply gentle pressure, and the actual part will actually pop out. Now use extreme caution with this, because you do not want to break the wall. The wall is 1/16 inch thick, so it can break. So take your time when you're cutting the parts out of the sprues. So after you cut your parts out, you're going to want to sand down those sides just a little bit. When you do cut them out, there is a little bit of a piece of wood left over sometimes. So it's always good to sand the sides, because when you put your corner trim on, your corner trim will not sit flush if it's not a smooth side. So now I'm preparing the wall bracing, and I'm using the 1/8 inch square wood that came with the kit. Now I did add extra as well, but I'm using my chopper to make all the pieces. It's definitely a lot faster and a lot more efficient if you have a chopper. So another tool you might want to invest in. All right, so all the pieces are cut, all the bracing pieces are cut, ready to go. And the next step right now is we're gonna glue them on. And basically what I'm gonna do here is I'm going to put the bracing right up to the edge on these pieces, on the side pieces. And then on these pieces, I'm going to offset it till right around here. So when I put this building together, it doesn't give me a problem. So we're gonna get these pieces glued on, And after we glue these on, I'm gonna let them dry overnight, and then tomorrow what I'm gonna do is distress the wood and give it a light coat of a new type of stain that I'm gonna be using. So stay tuned for that. So let's get started. Let's get these pieces glued on. All right, so the pieces are all ready to go. I actually braced them yesterday. They're all dry. And now the next step, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna distress the wood just a little bit. We're not gonna go too crazy with it. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna use this tool here, which is a tool you can get from Micromark, and it has a metal end. And basically it's just metal bristles. And I'm lightly gonna go over the actual pieces. So I'll hold it up for you so you can see how you do it. And basically what you're doing is just bringing it across the wood. And what it does, it actually puts a little bit of grain into the wood. All right, so you're not gonna need a lot. And then we're gonna finish it up with some steel wool. So let's get this started, and then we'll move on to the next step. All right, so the next step we're gonna do is we're actually gonna stain the walls, and also we're gonna stain the corners. Now I'm gonna try a new product. This is from Best Trains. This is called Vitro. And the color of this stain is called Dirty Straw. So we're gonna try this out. It's my first time using this stuff. Now the great thing about using the stain is some of the results that I've seen using the stain. So I'm gonna try it out for myself. But if you're using a product like this, make sure you pick up a stand, because I know I've covered this in previous videos. You do not want one of these bottles to tip over, and this is a odd shaped bottle. So they do make a stand for it so it doesn't fall down. So if you're gonna make the investment in one of these stands as well. So I'm gonna show you one. We're going to show you one wall, and then I'll speed up the process. So let's get this opened up. And again, this is the first time me using this product, so let's see how it goes. All right. You don't need a lot of it. Okay, not bad. Not bad at all. So I'm gonna go with this color, and then we're gonna stain the rest of the walls and also the corner trim. So let's get started. All right, so while these pieces are drying, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on prepping these pieces. Now, since I can't take a blade where I'm going, I'm going to cut these out now, but I'm going to paint them when I'm at my location. So but in addition to the painting, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lightly sand the edges where these little pieces are connected to the card. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to shade the sides of them. This is actually the roof trim, and this is the side trim on the roof. And then you have the two-piece doors. Now, this is going to be the same color as the building, which is going to be, the same color as the trim. So the building is going to be blue, and the trim is going to be an off-white. So let's get these pieces cut out of the card, and then we'll lightly sand them, and then I'll shade them in. Now, just to show you what I'm using to shade them in, I'm using this Prismacolor marker. And let me see, this is Cool Gray 90%. You can get a bunch of these at Michael's. And what I did, just so you see the result, what I did earlier, this is actually the roof card for the building. And this right here is the top. So this is going to get transfer tape. But what I did is I shaded the sides. All right, and then what I'll do is I'm going to shade the bottom here as well. All right, so I'll just show you how it does that. And you have a fine tip on one end, and then you have a wider tip on the other. So we're going to use the wider tip. And basically why I'm doing this is once it hangs over the building, I really don't want it to, there we go. I don't want the roof card showing. And afterwards, what you can do is you can actually weather this up with some powders or dry brushing, or however you want to weather it up. All right, so that's it. All right, so we're going to pause the video, and I'm going to get started on this piece. All right, so these pieces are ready for paint now. Now, I'll paint these on vacation, but they're all ready to go. Now, what I have to do, here's the drawback of traveling with a kit like this. You can't take a blade with. You know, this card is great for, you know, transporting because it's protected within the card. But once you bring them out of that card, then all bets are off, I guess. So what I'm going to have to do is figure out a way to pack these so they don't get damaged. And I'll probably end up carrying these with my carry-on onto the plane. So definitely do not want those parts damaged. So we're going to go on to the next step. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to cut the sign, which I made the sign. And then we're going to cut these corner pieces to size. And then we're going to begin to pack this kit up and get ready to transport to an undisclosed location, but you'll see soon enough where this kit is going. So we'll be back. All right, so the next step is we're going to cut the signs to fit the building. So I made them just a little bit too big, so I'm just going to trim them up. I'm going to put the transfer tape on, and then we're going to cut them out. So let me set up the camera, and then we'll get going. All right, so I got the sign cut to size. Now I nicked just the side of the, or the corner of the sign, which is not a big deal because I can cut that off. I cut it just a little bit too long, so I'll be able to trim that after the fact. So we're ready to go. So I'm gonna pack these up along with the building now. What I'm gonna also do is put the transfer tape on this, on the roof card, and then we're gonna get this kit packed up. So let's get started. So basically I'm trying to protect the walls as much as I can for the travel. And what I did is I took 2 pieces of cardboard, cut them to size that I can fit back inside the original packaging. And then what I did is I actually took rubber bands and secured the 2 pieces of cardboard around the walls using the rubber bands. Now, I will be using these rubber bands as a tool when I build the kit, and also the cardboard will be used as well. So it's going to be dual purpose. All right, so my glue of choice for when I'm building Craftsman kits is Weld Bond. So this was the old package that it used to come in, and now if you went to search online, this is what the new package looks like. Now, the reason why I got the smaller tube, because it is 2 ounces and I can take it on a plane no problem. So that's the only reason why I buy the small ones. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pack all this stuff up, and then I'm going to do a voiceover on the next section, and I'll describe what's going on in the scene as far as all the tools and materials I'm packing. So let's get started. So I find using school pencil boxes works very well if you're traveling and you want to build a Craftsman kit. What I like to do is put my paints in one, and I'm also using the actual grout sponges for painting, so I'll put those in there. Keeps everything secure. And then depending on how large a project is, I can fit in my nail file brushes, and also any type of weathering materials. I have brand sandpapers and a few different types of scouring pads to actually do some weathering, in addition to all my brushes and a couple of the miscellaneous tools like a plastic square. So all this stuff will go into 2 pencil boxes, and then it'll be safe to travel. So I'll be building this Craftsman kit at sea and going to Alaska on Quantum of the Seas. So once I get on board, I'll get situated, and then we'll begin to build this model. All right, so I'm on board finally. And what is really cool about this area here, there's a huge yard. You got intermodal going through. We'll try to zoom in on this yard. There's the end of the intermodal. There's the yard. Looks like there's a whole bunch of power down in there. All right, I'll be back. All right, so we're in Ketchikan, Alaska, our first stop on the Quantum of the Seas, and tonight, hopefully, I'll have some time. I'll start building the kit, and then I'll show you the progress. So let's continue our tour. It is raining here, extremely wet, but having a great time. So let's head back up to the cabin and start the kit. All right, guys, so we're in my cabin now, and we're gonna start the painting process, this model. And the first thing I'm gonna do is get my walls all set up. And then what I'm gonna do is, I picked up this blue tape, painter's tape, and then we're gonna get the windows all set up. Now, one thing I did not bring was my tool when I glaze the windows. So I'm gonna have to figure that out today, which shouldn't be a problem. But basically what I'm doing is just setting up my blue tape, and I'm gonna put the windows on it. Once I get all the windows and trim, I'll start the painting process. So I'm gonna be painting the trim in the windows and the walls today. So let's get started and setting these up. All right, so I got the pieces set up now on the board. So the next step is to paint these. What I'm gonna do now is take my second piece of cardboard that I used to protect the kit. I'm gonna set up the tape again, but this time this is gonna be for my trim pieces. All right, we'll be back. All right, so I got the paint ready and my walls ready, and what I'm gonna use for colors, I always like to start off with a gray. So I'm gonna be using the Bridgeport gray, and then the wall color is gonna be a sailing sky. All right, so let's get started. So I'm gonna do one wall, and then I will speed up the process. So I'm just using a little bit of water. All right, so I'm gonna do a small wall just to start, and then we'll speed it up. So I'm reducing the paint to almost like a wash, and I'm using like a 1/2-inch flat brush to do it. The only problem with this is I'm using water, which will eventually warp the wood. So I have to work a little quicker and then weigh it down. And then what I'm gonna do is take a towel, just wipe it. So the paint is almost like a stain. So we're gonna start with the gray and then move on to the blue. All right, since I could not bring weights with me, I'm using the next best thing. I'm using water bottles. So once this color dries, then I'll move on to the blue. So we'll be back. So now I'm applying the color of the walls, the blue color, and I'm using the same technique as I did with the gray. And basically what the thickness of the paint that I'm using is basically like skim milk. if I were to describe it. But again, make sure you use a towel to wipe away the excess, otherwise the walls will warp a lot. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to be painting the trim, and I'm using a color called Oyster White, and I'm going to be using this full strength. I'm not going to be reducing this, and I'm just going to take a simple paintbrush and just paint all the trim pieces. Pay close attention to the sides and the edges. Make sure all the areas are covered. It's not going to be uniform coverage, but once you put your weathering on the windows, it'll all blend in nicely. So in addition to the actual windows, we're going to be also painting the trim. So I'm going to be using a grout sponge for that, for the corner trim, and also for the laser cut doors, and also for the laser cut wood trim that goes along the edges of the roof. So all that is going to be painted with a sponge. It will be more of like a dry brushing technique. It's not going to be the same technique as the windows. So it's going to be a little bit different, but just watch how I do it in the video. All right, so we're gonna put the signs on now, and these are all cut to size, so I don't have to worry about taking a blade on board. So we're gonna peel back the transfer tape, and then we're gonna install the signs on. So basically, more or less like a peel and stick sign. Let's see if I can do it without destroying the sign. There we go. Now, as far as lining it up, just use the other sign just to line it up. When you put the signs on for the clapboard, it's not that bad because you can just line it up with the window edges or on the clapboard itself. So we're gonna go basically at this height. All right, so let's get the sign on. And the best way to do it is just line it up with the edge of the windows, like so. Just like that. Now you can leave it like that, or you could actually mold it into the actual clapboard, which we're gonna do. And basically how you do that is you take a popsicle stick. And the reason why we're using a popsicle stick, because it has rounded edges, and it's not going to tear up the sign and ruin the sign. So I'll do a couple of them just to show you. And all you have to do is just run it down each piece of clapboard. And we will weather this just a little bit. This is not my technique. Doug Fos Scale taught me this technique, and it's very, very simple to do. Just like that. And now you can see that it's part of the clapboard. Very simple. All right, so we're gonna do the other one, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how to do just a little bit of weathering on it. We'll be right back. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do is actually put like a chipped wood effect on it to look like there's some raw wood showing through. And this is gonna be very subtle, but I'm using khaki for a color. And same thing, you're gonna use a sponge, but you're not gonna need a lot. So this is going to be more like dry brushing, and you want to get most of it off and just lightly hit the model or hit the walls with it. Now, if you really want this thing, or this building really weathered up, just add more paint to it. And that's it. It's very subtle. The lighting is not the greatest in a cabin, but it's very subtle, but it will look good. All right, so we're going to continue on, and then we're also going to weather all the trim the same way. All right, so we're going to do everything with the khaki color just to make sure that it's showing some type of chipped effect. All right, so let's go back to the video, and I'm actually going to speed the next section up for you. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to weather the walls just a little bit more. I'm going to use two things. I'm going to use a Scotch-Brite pad, which is a gray pad. It's kind of like steel wool, but it's a used in automotive industry. And then I'm actually going to use steel wool. So I'm going to do one wall just to show you. I'll do a smaller one. Very light. And then I'm going to finish it with a steel wool. And it just adds another subtle weathering effect to it. And that's it. Wall's done. This particular model is not even going to need to be, I normally put like a wash on it, but this one I'm not. So, all right, so I'm going to get started on the rest of the walls, and then we'll start gluing this building together. All right, just to show you the end result. The sign has a little bit of a weather to it. Now, I didn't want this building to look abandoned, so I wanted it to look used but not brand new, so somewhere in between. And you can tell that the sign has a little bit of a weather to it. And that's the look I was going for. So now what we're going to do now is we're going to start the assembly process. I'm going to put the corner trim on the ends first, and then I'm going to glue it together, and then we're going to do the roofing. So just to show you, this actually took me literally not even a minute to weather these four walls with this two products. All right, so experiment, find out what works for you, and then have some fun with it. So let's get started on the assembly process. One of the things I like to keep in my toolbox when I build my Craftsman kits is a nail clipper. It comes in handy when you're cutting like the 2x4s and the 1x6s and the 1x10s, and it will cut 1/16 square corner trim. And it's great because you don't have to worry about carrying a blade when you're traveling. And as you can see here, I'm trimming the ends, and then I follow up with a nail file, and I smooth everything out. So nice, easy tool to have, nothing special, but it does come in handy when you're building Craftsman kits. So I got all the four walls glued together, and right now the glue is drying. So I figure I'd take a quick break and enjoy some beautiful scenery. So we are headed to our next port of call. Another inexpensive tool that you can put in your Craftsman Kit toolbox is a set of rubber bands. Now you can get different sizes, but you want to make sure that if you use rubber bands to secure the actual walls while the glue is drying, you want to make sure that you're not getting a rubber band that's so strong that it's crushing the building. So just keep that in mind when selecting the rubber bands you use. One of the things I like to do with all the buildings that I build is I like to basically put when I actually built them. So I usually put a date, but in this case, I'm actually writing the name of the boat since I actually built this on a cruise ship. So I'm going to put the name of the boat, the date, and I'm also going to sign the bottom of the roof card. It's just a nice little memory of when I actually built this. So the next step is we're going to be putting the roofing paper on. So what I'm doing is peeling back the backing of the transfer tape, exposing the sticky surface. And then I'm going to start installing the tar paper pieces one by one. I'm going to stagger them on the roof, and I'm also going to have an overhang of approximately 1/32 of an inch if I can. That's just how I like to do my roofs. Now, I'm going to speed it up after the first couple pieces, and then you'll see the final product. The roof cap that's on top of the roof is going to be glued down with regular well-bond glue. I took one of the pieces of the roof card, cut it in half, and then I folded it in half from that point, and that became the roof cap. So you'll see that in the actual video. So what I'm doing here is just doing a light weather using a scouring pad, and then I'm going to follow up with a steel wool pad. This is going to be just a couple of quite a few techniques I'll be using to weather this roof. All right, everybody, so I'm back home, and let's show you how far I got with the kit. Now, I didn't get as far as I wanted to, but I was able to transport it back without any damage. And there's a reason why the windows are not on yet, and the doors. So when I went to do the actual glazing of the windows, I used the weld bond glue, But the problem that I found, this does work, but it doesn't work as fast as I would like it to. But this is definitely my go-to glue for actually assembling the kits. But what I should have brought was my canopy glue. And the reason why the weld bond didn't work is I'm using the glue and inside the actual windows, and I want the glue to suspend in between the frames. The problem with the weld bond is very thick. The canopy glue is thinner, and I can move it a lot better. So I'm gonna end up glazing the windows with this canopy glue, all right? So, but this is the model. It came out really good. I'm happy the way it came out so far. I'm gonna add some whole bunch of detail to this model, so I will I'll show you that when I'm done. But let's take a look where it's gonna be on the manufacturers, and so you can get a better visual on this project. So let's head over to the manufacturers. All right, so this is gonna be the area where the model is gonna be, and this is a section of the manufacturers that used to be my old layout. And I had a building here, as you can see where it was. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna build all this up, and then I'm gonna put the structure probably like around here. I haven't decided how I'm gonna do the landforms yet, but it's gonna be in this section here. What I'm actually gonna do is put a bump out on the back, and then I'm gonna put this on a concrete base. And also I'm gonna do something in the front here. There's gonna be a pier here, and I'll have a boat assigned to this area as well. So this is where River Street Fish Company is gonna reside. I'm definitely gonna do a lot more roof detail and then some more weathering on the roof as well. So this is gonna conclude this video. There will be a part 2 to this build, so don't worry about that. And I'll show you all the stuff that I'm gonna be doing on this next. So I'm gonna continue building this, and then probably in October you'll see part 2. So this is Ron, New Haven Rails. Hope you enjoyed this build series on building a Craftsman kit at sea. And this is the second time I took a project with me on vacation, and it's probably not going to be the last either. So hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't already, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and check out the rest of my content on my channel. You might like it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you at the next build series. Have a great night, everybody.